that's true. Naked Palpatine.
Oh, you pick that one. Fresh out of the clone tank, nude Palpatine is my
Well, that's the first thing I think of when you say Dark Empire Palpatine. Hello everybody, and welcome to my review of The Severing Sun by Vaughn Roycroft, which is a self-published author, much the same as I think Philip Chase was. I definitely want to make a section on my channel where I kind of devote time to self-published authors because they need the support the most. Obviously, Wheel of Time, which I still need to finish. I mean, again, rest in peace. Robert Jordan has passed, and Brandon Sanderson is fine. That guy's doing great, regardless of what I have to say. But it is the people that are self-publishing that need the most love and support because they don't have the traditional publishing to kind of help them, right? So it's up to reviewers and other people to do that. And I mean, if I didn't like the book, I would say so. I would try to be polite about it because, you know, a lot of these people, especially because they're self-published, they will actually respond to you, and I don't want to be a dick. Sorry, I'm in the garage, which with my current living space is the only place where I can kind of talk at a normal volume and not upset people. But I heard a loud bang, and that rather scared me because it's like 11:30 at night. So, like, you know, I'm not the toughest man in the world, so that was a little disconcerting. But hey, if I die, so what? Anyway, I don't want to be a dick, so I always try to be polite. Like Wheel of Time, even though that's a massive franchise, I'm not particularly a fan of it, but I'm still trying to be polite as possible because I know the Wheel of Time fans really love the Wheel of Time. I'm trying not to be rude about that. But The Severing Sun by Vaughn Roycroft seems like a really nice guy. He commented back and forth. He offered, just like Philip Chase, to give me his books for free, and you know, I would have accepted. At the same time, I really enjoyed this book, and I want to be able to support. So much in the same way. I mean, Philip Chase already did it, so it's like I can't go and buy the books now because he already gave me them. But I was like, no, it's okay. Even though I'm struggling with money, I will eventually buy them. So, because I have them on Kindle. Which funny story about that, real quick. So I think maybe it was because of Philip Chase. I don't know, but Amazon offered me the first two books by Vaughn Roycroft for like $3.99, which I thought was like a steal. This is back before all the problems with Amazon and Audible have been arising. So I picked them up, you know. Never picked up the third one, didn't know the third one came out. I was listening to Philip Chase and Shay talk about just the Way of Adan, I guess, in the entire trilogy. And Vaughn Roycroft commented on that. And I was like, that sounds familiar. I looked at him, looked up his channel, saw, oh my gosh, I have those two books. And then I immediately bought the third one. So, but you know, $3 on Amazon Kindle means he got like nothing. So I definitely want to correct that in the future. Anyway, I just thought it was a little funny story. But here we have a rather small structure of a landmass because we're primarily, I mean, I think the world's going to be bigger in the second book, but in this book, we deal with a bunch of different tribes, essentially. We have the Skalani, we have the Kanar, and the Gotari, primarily in this section of the book, or this first book. And the Skalani are very much a lot like, kind of like Amazonian woman warriors, along with, I heard Vaughn Roycroft talk about this book, and he kept mentioning the Goths, which were historical people. Now, listen, I'm no history expert, so plenty of people brought it up. I'm not going to bring it up because it's a bit redundant. Other people mentioned it, and to be honest, I'd be disingenuous because I don't know that much about it. But that was an inspiration, so if you know about the Goths, that's something that Vaughn was putting into his writing, so that's kind of cool. But ultimately, this is a coming of age accepting the hero's call, much like many other fantasy, as the main character Vaughn must go and accept his destiny. But is this a hero story? That's up for debate. You have to read the book to find out. And even then, you might not have all the answers answered by the end of the book. The other main characters we have in here, we got Vaughn, we got Elaine, however you want to pronounce that, Destrusten, and Iona, who is a princess. Those are kind of the primary ones. There's other characters in there. But I really love the cast, I have to say. Vaughn is a bit more generic for me. I mean, he's fine. I don't particularly love or hate him at this particular time. Elaine was one of my favorites, though. Elaine, really loved her character. All the female characters I thought here were pretty great, considering. Thedamir, who's a king. We'll get about that in spoilers. I really enjoyed Thedamir. Like, he starts out seemingly one way and becomes very complex by the end. I was very surprised by it. But ultimately, something happens near the beginning of the book which kind of calls Vaughn to begin his journey. And he struggles with this sort of bloodlust within him, which I guess has been passed down, maybe, sort of, kind of. That's up for debate. The magic system in this fantasy world is very small scale, to the point where it may not even exist. Like, it's ultimately up to interpretation whether it exists. Like, they talk about blessings, which would be, similar to a lot of religions. Christianity, pick your poison, which is a bit more hard to pinpoint as actually being divine inherently. And then this bloodlust thing, which could just be a psychological thing with him. I don't know. But it's not very clear whether or not magic actually exists. But it's... I'm not a good reviewer, guys. But I think the book starts off rather fast, which you think would immediately be a positive, right? But I think the vastness of how fast everything kind of happens at the very beginning kind of undercuts a little bit of the emotional points of that. I didn't really feel it, that beginning part. I suppose if we later get like a prequel story with that particular character, maybe I will then, in a reread, feel bad for that character. But as for first-time reader going into it, I didn't really feel that, you know what I mean? But that's not to say that Vaughn can't write really compelling characters and emotional beats, because as you get into the book, it definitely starts to hit, especially between Vaughn and Elaine and some of her friends like Iona, or, even between characters like Thedamir, who's this king of the Gotari, and Vaughn himself. There's a lot of emotional moments there. Nothing here super deeply, truly, from the bottom of my heart, just like, ugh. What does that even mean? I thought it was really solid work, the character work. Again, nothing here has made me desperately, I'm not going to lie and say I'm desperately in love with all of these characters, but I like them a lot, and I'm really excited where they will go, so that I can perhaps deeply, truly fall in love with these fake people. There's a lot of action in this book, and for those who have never come to my channel before, shocking. I know I'm a guy, but I'm not that into it. And that's not his fault. I'm typically, it rolls over for me. I check for deaths, but I'm not that into action. That being said, he wrote action in such a way where I actually could visualize it, because I also struggle to do that with action scenes. I usually can't visualize it. Him and Philip Chase were able to do it for me. Malazan at times did. But there's a lot of action. So if you enjoy action, that's something you're going to immediately like about this series. Also, the cultures here are really interesting. I really enjoy them. Elaine kind of reminds me, I don't know if you all know about the Star Wars Expanded Universe, but if you do, she kind of reminds me of Tino Ka, except that she has both arms. One did not get chopped off, and she doesn't use the Force. But outside of that, she very much reminded me of her. I also think the prose in here are pretty solid. It's kind of like Philip Chase's in terms of it's very easy to read, very easy to get into. You're not going to see super flowery things here. I mean, there are moments, though. There are a phrase here or there, or a particular like monologue that can go off on occasion, which is super well written. That I was like, oh, nice. But typically, it's pretty easy going all the way through. It's not bad by any means, but it's just very easy going. It's not super complex. Anybody can really read this and kind of get into it. Um, and I love the world building. I'm really curious to see what will happen with the next book, because I see things that kind of remind me of like Romans. So I'm excited to see what that's all about, as they're going to be like going over the sea or something, maybe. Um, but yeah, I really enjoyed the world building, and even just the small internal politics going on with the Gotari and everything. I thought was great. Um, Vaughn really grew into his own. Whether it's a good thing or bad thing, we have yet to see. I really enjoyed, just in this book alone, Elaine's character development, along with her friend Kana, however you say her name. Urias was another one I really enjoyed, which we haven't got to yet. We'll get to them in spoilers. But overall, I really enjoyed the cast of characters we had in this book, I have to say. You know, I pretty easily, like, I'm not like in love with Vaughn, but I pretty easily started to like that guy. I pretty easily started to fall in love with Elaine, and so on and so forth. It was pretty easy to click with them, but pretty early on. Like, I'd say around the 200 mark, I was pretty much in it to win it with these guys. So, only negative, which is very subjective for me. Like I said, the pacing at the beginning, I think, kind of makes it hard to care. Maybe I'm just callous. But I'm not a prude. I don't care too much. But we were getting to R. Scott Backer levels with the sex scenes in this book. I think there's only like 2 to 3 out of a 500-page book, so I think you'll be fine. Most people will be fine. You've read Game of Thrones and stuff. There's just particular things here without being too graphic. Like certain body parts will be out, and we'll mention like spitting and doing the hak tua, as you will, as the kids would say. But it could just be quite explicit sometimes. Like, man, I hope nobody walks in and looks at what I'm reading. Like it was like later Frank Herbert, like levels of that. So I could have done without, personally, but not everybody's going to care. Some people are going to be really happy that it's in there. One could argue it helps elevate the romance of the characters. I just don't think it's required to, because it can be very romantic, but when you get so in detail, it just starts to feel like I'm intruding on a private moment that I should not be there for. Is kind of just how I feel, but that is just me. But at least it's more wholesome here, as opposed to if you read R. Scott Baker, you just want to hurt yourself because of what you're looking at. So I'm so scattershot, guys. I'm so sorry. Other people have done a better job. Everybody always does a better job. Nobody comes to my channel because I'm such a great reviewer. Honestly, I don't know why anybody comes by, but I appreciate you all. But I enjoyed the book. And again, on Kindle you can get it for pretty cheap. But again, he's self-published, so please get a physical copy. Like help him, give him some love. Buy that first book. If you don't like it, don't touch the other ones, right? But like, I don't know, like, give it a shot, I mean, maybe one day you want to be a self-published author. I don't. I can't write. That's another thing when I do reviews. It's like, I can't write, so why am I critiquing other people? But then again, I guess the majority of people that would be reading your book don't write, so give or take that. Anyway, I enjoyed it. I do think it's worth your time, despite my gripes with the little sexual stuff there and the rushing of the beginning of the section of the book. Like so much, like, I can't get into, I'll talk about it in spoilers, but like back to back, and I didn't feel any of those. I mean, I felt sympathy, but I didn't feel empathy. And empathy is a lot different from sympathy. Sympathy is like intellectual, but empathy is your heart. So, but we'll get into that in spoilers. But overall, I really enjoyed this book. I think it is slightly drag in certain parts, but it's always chugging along, which I know is going to be, I don't think anybody's ever said this book is dragged. I felt it slightly in corners, but anytime it felt slightly like it immediately zooms afterwards, so it's fine. But it also, maybe it also me just getting used to this world. It probably won't feel the same once I read book 2. But again, for a self-published author, he's made nothing else, just these 3 books. For a first book ever, it's really good. It's really good. Like, if I didn't know he was a self-published author, if I didn't actually talk to the guy, I would think that this is it's just a fantasy book you'd find in the store, like just a solid read. And I'm hoping the next one will make me just desperately fall in love with it. I'll tell you this, one self-published author, first book ever released, one story, has had me more invested and more in love with it than 4 books in the Wheel of Time, which hurts my soul. And I don't want to hurt people's feelings, but I bought all 13, so you could be damn sure I'm going to review them all because I spent the money. I have to finish. I'm going to get into spoilers. If you don't want any spoilers, there's the door. One thing I had to give praise for, I don't know if this was Vaughn's decision. Am I pronouncing your name wrong? Let me know. Or if it was the publisher's decision, or I guess he is self-published, it's his decision. I'm dumb. Anyway, but the list of characters and the glossary is at the beginning of the book. Every time I've read a fantasy book so far, it's at the end. Why? I've already finished the book. Why would you do that to me? I mean, I guess it's fine if you have a physical copy, but if you're reading it on Kindle, just give it to me at the beginning. And he did that, and I immediately saw that. I was like, yes, thank you so much. We begin with Vaughn, who likes to carve. Very good for him. And we meet his father, Engavar. We learn that Engavar was falsely accused of murder and disappointed, and he's very disappointed in the softness of his son, who just likes to carve things like he's Jesus or something. I'm just kidding. But he's definitely feeling rushed, like he's trying to prepare his son for something very quickly. I'm going to refer to my phone real quick, because I write things down for that. For the Gotari, there is only one Futhark. Is the Futhark, the oath between their nations, 2 powerful ruling clans, the Wolthis and Namis. The Futhark not only resolved generations of tribal infighting, it made their people whole and mighty. Dania was his father's homeland. Vaughn only vaguely remembered living down there. He was 16 now, which meant he hadn't been in the valley for a decade, but he remembered swimming in the river, cold and swift. His mother said it ran to the sea, that could carry him right through the mountains, out of Dania, and into the wide world beyond. The idea had stayed with him, that leaving the compound could mean finding his way to someplace distant and exotic, someplace free of his father's grievances, plots, and expectations. But he doesn't want to follow after his father. He doesn't approve of his father. But, alas, things happen. We also meet Destrusten, this fat guy, who's a cousin to Engavar and Vaughn. And then we get this big, epic beginning scene of the death of Engavar. And, he tries to get his son and his family to go away, but Vaughn comes back to try to help his father, but he just can't. And his father dies, but Elaine comes out of nowhere and saves Vaughn and his family. And then we get an explicit sex scene between, I think this is the one between Thedamir and Amacelia. Not sure. But I just wrote down porn. That's what it felt like. We see Skalani practice scalping, as we see Elaine doing it when they're killing these guys, which I would say is gnarly, but I just happened before this to read Blood Meridian, where that happened front and center, left and right, and so I'm quite used to scalping now. We also get introduced to Casella, who is the queen of the Skalani. And then again, this is what I'm talking about, like the fastness of it, because then immediately after this, Valdon's mother is pregnant with his unborn sibling, and he has to choose between the mother or the unborn child. But regardless, the mother dies during childbirth. So, you know, if I had to find a perfect equivalent, what happened to Valdon's father and mother and his appropriate response after the fact is the equivalent of Luke Skywalker in A New Hope when he sees his aunt and uncle burn to a crisp, and then he goes off on an adventure with Obi-Wan Kenobi. And he only seems a bit pouty and sad after Obi-Wan dies. Where's all that mourning over your aunt and uncle who raised you for 18 years? You know what I mean? That was just a missed opportunity. The EU, of course, would fix that, but that's the EU for you. But the movie itself never addresses it. And in the same way, I understand a lot's going on in this book, but for a book that does such a good job of characterization, because it does a great job, we never really, I mean, there's a couple lines here, but we never really get to have Vaughn mourn his family. Again, there is stuff in there. I just personally don't feel, for how much has just happened to him, that he appropriately reacts to that in a way that I think would be realistic. I mean, I suppose everything he does in this book could be excused as grief, I guess, in a very strange way. You could make that argument, but I just feel like some more internal mourning, at least, would have helped with that. But other than that, that's mainly my gripe, is the opening with this book and the death of his mother and father all in one sitting. And then after that, the book kind of smooth sailing. But I do think there were some missed opportunities there with making you, because of the lack of him mourning his family, especially since I didn't know them, I really didn't feel that. Dunar's blessing is sort of this steroid, because there's this bloodlust that Vaughn gets. In an epigraph before the following chapter, we learn that Tukash is pitting everyone against one another. He's like this priest for the Carpins. There's this, I think it's a conversation, or is it a dream? I don't remember. I wrote Elaine and Vaughn dream scene because I really liked it, and now I can't remember what it was about. I'm so sorry. We learn, or we meet Akanis and Elaine and learn about their very close sisterly kind of romantic dynamic they got going on. I'm going to go for more sisterly, but they definitely do stuff that I don't know. I don't have a sister, and I'm not a girl, so I don't know if sisters do some of the stuff that they do in this book, but definitely gave like a little mixed mold symbol there of what was going on with them. But they have a very tight-knit relationship, which will make later parts of the book hit a bit harder. But I really enjoy their scenes, a lot of their scenes together. There's this sort of court, it's not a court, but there's this sort of court appeal scene where Vaughn goes to appeal to Thedemir, which I thought was really great. We also meet Arnagern and Belgor, who offers Vaughn a gift, like a shield and some stuff. There's this other character named Tavar, yeah, and they fight, and they basically make it a tie because the bloodlust is saying kill him, but Vaughon's a bit smart. He can see that this is not the way to go, so he decides to spare Tavar and end it on a tie, which I really enjoyed that section. Felt a little bit generic, but the way the story is going, I don't think it's generic anymore. But we'll see if I'm correct as we get to the next couple books. Elaine and Vaughn discussion after saying goodbye to his family was very human, and I really so many scenes between Elaine and Vaughn just hit so powerfully. He gets a horse named Ardua, which is cool. Meet a character named Adistair who can read Imperial Academy texts, which the Imperial Academy is seemingly this world's Rome. Another thing I forgot to mention, a non-spoiler, is that while this is a fantasy world, it also is like kind of historical fiction. better late than never. So we get an almost porn. It doesn't end up happening, but Elaine and Vaughn. I don't. Does it happen there? It happens. It does. It does happen there. They're on the battlefield and they try to do the freaky after they win a battle, and people walk in on them. So that's unfortunate. Akonis and Elaine talks about how Elaine chose this. You know, throughout the whole book, Elaine has been assigned to protect Vaughn, right? That she is his guardian. But as they keep talking, it becomes very much clear that Elaine ultimately chose this herself. You know, no matter what external factors she tries to argue, she ultimately chose this. It's not even necessarily, it is a part of it too that she's starting to fall in love with Vaughn, but it's not even, it was never really even about that. It was, she senses that there's something with him that's going to change the course of the world, and she simply wants to be part of that. She wants to matter. She wants to be part of that. She wants to be part of history. And so she's ultimately going against a lot of her vows and stuff that she promised for the sake of that dream. And Akonis calls her out on it. But at the same time, Akonis is a little possessive. So Vaughn strikes Takash and kills him. Yeah. Sorry. It's, oh gosh, it's almost 12 o'clock. I gotta get to sleep. But yeah, he strikes Takash down, which upsets a lot of people. Theodemir offers Vaughn a way out of the situation. And due to his recklessness, Vaughon's like, no, I'm going to go all the way with this. Which, again, Theodemir is such an interesting character because he starts off very generic, like, oh, his father killed my father, or whatever it was. And so he like has this hatred for Vaughn, even though he's never done anything to him. But as you get through the book, as much as he doesn't want to like the kid, he kind of starts to. And he starts to have respect for him. And, you know, it gets to this boiling point where they've kind of won and done everything they've wanted to do, and they could just stop it there. And Theodemir and Vaughn could help usher in a better age for their people by working together to better work things. But Vaughon's like, no, I want to tear it down. I want to make something new, fresh. And Theodemir's almost pleading with him, like, no, we can do this the right way. Let's work together. And Vaughn is just super no. And this is at the point where I'm like, oh, are we getting this hero story here? Or is this the origin story to a villain? I don't know. But I was kind of on Theodemir's side. I don't know. Because he's so nuanced, because he starts off as so generic, but he has this tenderness too. He doesn't want to care, but he kind of does. And that final scene where he just like pleads with him, I don't know, like I just gained this massive respect for him. And he's probably one of my favorite characters of the book, honestly, with the way I'm talking about him. Also, Urias, his like brother, right-hand man, best character. Urias is super smart, super personable. I like Urias a lot. He wasn't in the book a lot. I hope he's in a lot more the next two, but he's one of my favorites. Ursula, she's another of the Scalani people. She tells Elaine that her sister died because of her. Because early on in the battle, they basically taken down like a couple guys, and her sister went to go check and make sure they're all dead. And when that happened, Elaine left to go check on Vaughn, which I guess people came by later and killed her sister because her partner wasn't there to protect her. And Ursula puts against her, or Ursula, sorry. But I really like that scene because you really see the turmoil and hurt in Elaine's mind as she's having this be told to her. we also learn that Urias and Elaine are siblings. That was a big revelation. And ultimately, as we near the end of the book, Elaine gives up her people, because that's what has to happen if she's going to do this. She has to give up her people. She has to be exiled. She's no longer allowed to return. She gives up everything to follow Vaughn. So all these epigraphs have been being written by somebody, right? Bryn, which I think, because these are written in the future, is meant to be Vaughn's and Elaine's future kid, but I guess we'll see. And I skipped over a lot. A lot of people have done a better job than I have. I really enjoyed the book, though. There are parts that stick out to me more than others, of course, but I had a lot of fun with it. As I said, the action scenes, there's a lot of it in this book, and it just, I'm reading through to make sure I don't miss like a character death or something, but I'm not paying an extreme amount of attention, because I struggle with that. It's a me problem. But everything else, from the dialogue to the world building to the character moments, there's so many good character moments in here. I really enjoy this read. I'm really excited to see what the other books have in store, and I know I fudged this. I really did. I'm sorry, Vaughn Roycroft. I loved your book, though. I enjoyed it a lot. I'm tired. I'm sorry if I didn't do your book justice. But probably has a new book coming out at some point. I don't know, but you should definitely be following him to find out when that happens, if it doesn't already happen by the time this book comes out. But I enjoyed it a lot, and I really look forward to the next one. So I hope you'll join me when I discuss that and flabber my way through, since I'm just full of ADHD and being tired and not be able to properly explain my thoughts. I'm also a terrible note taker, notoriously bad. But I really enjoyed talking to you guys about this today, and I hope you'll join me for a discussion of the next one. And if you haven't read it, go read it. And if you have read it, let me know what you thought in the comment section below. And Yvonne, you're watching this, just thank you for responding back when you did. Very kind of you. And until next time, guys. Well, the gods are fickle, as Elaine likes to say. And so don't pray to them before you go to sleep. Pray to the real one. I was thinking about a thing from Avengers where Captain America goes, I don't think God would wear something like that. I'm paraphrasing, but he said that about Thor. Anyway, I'm gonna get out of here. Have a good night, you guys.